Hi, everybody. I'm Jay, Creative Director at Circus. Welcome to our Metaverse Lounge, where I'd like to give you a little bit of a presentation from our vantage point as specialists in immersive media about the sorts of technology we think brands are best using to their advantage now and will be in the future. First, a little bit about us. So we, Circus, are a creative agency based in London, and for the last 12 years, we've had the privilege of working with some fantastic brands from around the world, helping them to realize the potential of using immersive virtual technology to do things that they might otherwise do in person. So our mission in life is all about inspiring exciting brands to do things virtually. And we use a number of techniques to do that. We use technology like 360 photo and video, 3D modeling and animation, virtual reality, augmented reality, and of course, as you can see, the metaverse. Our agenda today is really simple. We're going to talk a little bit about some technology that brands are using now, and then we're going to look at what we predict is going to be coming next. Let's look at some of the options. So the first and most familiar type of technology is web apps. So browsers nowadays with high internet speeds can deliver a much more rich experience than they used to when they were simply essentially digital magazines. So nowadays we can publish immersive, interactive, game-like experiences directly to the web and allow anybody with any device to access them. So typically these are either real-world captures or 3D models. They can be interactive, they can be navigable, and they can be layered up with information, calls to action, and even e-commerce. And the fantastic thing about these is not only do they encourage exploration and keep users on site for longer, driving up dwell times, users also report greater engagement, greater enjoyment, and of course, because they're published to the web and can be have analytics triggers that are familiar to websites, they can be adaptable, measurable, and trackable. So you can really see the results straight away. The second type of technology that we work a lot with brands on is virtual reality. So virtual reality for creatives is a fantastic medium to capture users' attention. You get to control everything they see and hear for the duration of the time they're wearing their headset. And there are loads of fantastic use cases out there, which will probably be familiar to most of you. The question that we get most commonly is about how to generate ROI, because there's a perception there's a limited use case for VR. There aren't many situations where you're physically in the room with your audience, and so therefore there's concerns about scale. So our answer to that is to think about your audience as having multiple layers. So whereas a primary audience might be, for example, like this case study at the top here, in person at, let's say, an event or a launch or a pop-up or a trade show, where you are in the room with users and you can put a headset on them and they can have an experience that you control. That may well be the primary use case. But you can also think of others, because content created for VR is quite easily adaptable to other delivery mechanisms. So for example, remote, over 1 million UK households now have access to a VR headset. Lots of office spaces do. So if you give people enough of a reason to put one on, they often have access to VR in their home or office anyway. And if they don't, there are very affordable VR options which you can actually send out to them. We've done many times in campaigns where users can use their smartphone as the power for a VR experience that you can send them cheaply and easily through the post. So a really eye-catching campaign opportunity there. So to create that remote virtual reality experience. And then the third layer is on the web. So yes, looking at content on the web doesn't have that full immersive impact that VR does, but nevertheless, it's still interactive, it's still immersive, it's still enjoyable, and it's more exciting than you might get from a website. So the third layer might be to publish that VR content on the web in some form so that you can reach the maximum possible audience. The next type of technology I'd like to talk to you about is augmented reality. So unlike virtual reality, where users are fully immersed in the environment, augmented reality refers to a situation where they're using usually a phone, but perhaps a tablet, to point it at something in the real world, and then that real world view delivered by their camera is overlaid by something virtual or digital, therefore augmenting their reality. There's lots of great use cases for augmented reality. The advantage of it, of course, is that users all essentially have smartphones, so the hardware is in their pockets. They don't need anything special. And the great thing is that web AR, so augmented reality experiences that are powered just on the web with no app download required, is much better than it used to be. And therefore, that barrier where users needed to download an app has gone away, and you can deliver much richer, much more detailed experiences just via the web. All they need to do is scan some kind of QR code. We find that there are two typical use cases for augmented reality. One is enhancing the physical. So often as a creative, as a brand or an agency, you have a limited physical canvas for your execution. Now that might be a billboard, a bus shelter, but also might be product packaging. It might be a magazine ad. Whatever that physical activation is, you have a limited canvas on which to play. But what augmented reality does is it allows you to expand that canvas and to do more with it. So just to take an example, if your product is a soft drink can, you have a limited amount of space on that wrap in which to put information and ingredients and brand messaging and design and so on. But if you can persuade people to scan that product, that packaging can come to life. It can get larger, it can animate, it can deliver more of an experience, and it can deliver more information to users. So suddenly we are taking the frame away from what was a limited physical activation and being able to enhance it in terms of its size, but also in terms of how animated and fun it can be. The second is about linking physical to digital. So a lot of the time, again, as a brand or an agency, your physical activations are a limited size. They're in the real world. And so we're relying on users to notice them, to remember them, and to take action. But what augmented reality does is it gives them a reason to get their phone out of the pocket and get online. So a print activation, whether it's a billboard or bus shelter or whatever, suddenly can have something on it that encourages people to get their phone out, to point the phone at it, to have that greater augmented experience. And as soon as they do that, they have access to the whole of the web at their fingertips. So they can be encouraged to save it, share it, click through to a website perhaps, or even transact. So suddenly it gives people a reason to get online and therefore transport your physical activation into a trackable, actionable digital experience. The penultimate one I want to talk about is the metaverse. So this is something obviously has come into people's consciousness in the last few years. And we have to separate the metaverse from Meta. Meta made a big bet around people wanting to spend large parts of their time in the metaverse, in VR, and clearly society's not ready for that. But the metaverse nevertheless refers to a suite of technology that allows people to feel like they're together even when they're not together. And we in our own business found this to be really powerful. And there's some great use cases out there of how brands leverage that fact, regardless of whether we expect people to have VR hardware or spend a lot of their days in it as a matter of course. Nevertheless, there are plenty of situations where we would like to be in the same room, but for whatever reason, we can't be. So that might be about exhibition centers launching products and saving carbon emissions by not having people fly around the world, and instead they can enjoy a product launch from the comfort of their own country and office. It might be about gamifying an experience. Nightland has had over 1 billion impressions on Roblox and essentially borrowing an audience. It might be about product launches like Heineken Silver, where a lot of press was generated off the back of this tongue-in-cheek metaverse activation. And there are loads of other examples. And essentially, there are two routes that you can go down in terms of the metaverse. You can either borrow an audience by building in an existing metaverse environment, like Roblox, Fortnite, Sandbox, Decentraland, and so on. Or you can create your own metaverse and invite your own audience and own the conversation. So that's where custom builds would come in, and you can curate the content of it, the style of it, and who gets access. So a really powerful suite of technology. Okay, the last piece of technology I'd like to talk about in this section is artificial intelligence. Now, of all the technologies we've talked about, this seems set to be the one that will most comprehensively change the way that we live and work. And the use cases are already myriad and are only growing every month. So there's lots we could talk about. But what we want to focus on is 3 areas where artificial intelligence is being used right now today in the creative and digital industries that we think is really exciting. So the first one is in rapid prototyping of creative ideas. So when engaged with a project, as creatives, it often took weeks of mood boarding and sketching and concept development to arrive at something that we're ready to show a client, at which point we finally get their opinion on whether we're on the right track or not. Nowadays, AI allows us to rapidly prototype creative ideas using tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and even ChatGPT when it comes to text. There's loads out there, and there's more adding every week. But this is a really exciting route. We see it as a complement. It's a tool to the creative process, and it allows us to move much more rapidly and cost effectively. The second is about data interrogation. So whenever you have large amounts of data, perhaps being generated by websites or historic customer data, CRM perhaps, AI is able to interrogate that data and look for insights and patterns that a human might not even think to look for. So that's one that is going to be growing over time. And the third is about customer service. So there's long been a tussle in customer service between the human interaction that customers want and the automated interaction that is more cost effective to deliver. Now, what we're doing is trying to bridge that gap by having customer service avatars. So no longer a impersonal text chat box, but instead it's now possible to clone a real person's face and voice, maybe even multiple people's faces and voices, and have them act as a human face on the interaction. So customers are able to have a conversation and not just be reading text and feel like they're talking to a robot, but actually have a human face which smiles at them and makes facial expressions, and it feels like a richer, more realistic experience. So this can act as a kind of guide for websites and web experiences, or it can be more of an interactive customer service tool. The next stage of this, of course, will be to plug in a language model so that it can actually generate text rather than be an animated FAQs. It can actually be generating text as we go, and that's going to get really exciting. Our last section is called Next. This, just for fun, is where we would like to have a little think about what technology we predict from our vantage point is going to be coming next, which technology is going to revolutionize the way that we live and work. Now, to do that, I'd like to just point out a little story. So back in the day, we had separate devices for things like music, photography, making phone calls, maps, calculators, and so on. And those technologies all eventually converged into the smartphone. As the smartphones got smarter, as the app stores got richer, suddenly the need for MP3 players and digital cameras and normal phones and maps and gaming handheld devices all melted away and became essentially obsolete in favor of the smartphone because it was so powerful and so useful. We were happy to spend money on it. We're happy to charge it every night, and we're happy to carry it around in our pocket. But the next generation of users are not going to be impressed by the smartphones that we think are so fancy now. They're going to be impressed by something else. So we like to think about what that might be. And our argument is that it's going to be wearables. We think that in the future, a lot of the hardware we take for granted today will converge into wearables the same way previous technology converged into the smartphone. Well, why is that? Well, it's because most of the hardware that exists in the world is there to deliver images to our eyes and sounds to our ears. Now, glasses, if we include contact lens wearers, are worn by up to half of the population already and are perfectly placed to show images to our eyes and deliver sounds to our ears because of the way the lenses and the arms are constructed. And we're used to seeing them, so it's not that big a leap. Now, if wearables, smart glasses, are good enough and affordable enough, suddenly the need for a lot of this hardware melts away. The phone, the laptop, the TV, the VR headset, the earbuds, the fitness tracker, the smart speaker, and augmented reality suddenly converge into one device, and that's all you need. So that's what we think is going to happen in the next decade. There are already some fantastic examples of hardware out there. You will have perhaps seen the launch of the Apple Vision Pro. Now, this is not smart glasses, but it is Apple staying in the conversation for the long run for when they do become commonplace. But there are already brands creating and selling really good quality smart glasses today. So Nreal, Microsoft, another one we met recently was Vuzix, all have affordable for a few £100 smart glasses that you can buy online, which will deliver high definition color, video, and images to your eyes, good quality audio to your ears, or via bone conductivity speakers. And suddenly you can access directions as you move around, information about your itinerary, watch movies and consume media. There's even a set of smart swimming goggles you can buy online, which will tell you your lap time, your speed, even your heart rate. So if wearables has already made it into niches like swimming, we see no reason that it shouldn't become really commonplace in the very near future. The question then is, what do I do about all of this? I said at the beginning that our mission is to inspire the world's most exciting brands to do things virtually, and we really mean it. Now, the way we do that is we take them through a process we call the carousel. And this is why I would encourage you to give us a call and talk about any time you have an idea that you might want to realize. And the carousel, just to give you an overview, really takes us through a series of stages from conceive, where we work with you to understand what your brief is, your objectives, your audience, what does success look like for your project, and then conceive the right deliverable for it. Capture is about pulling together fantastic quality visuals, whether they be the real world, 3D, CG environments, and information content to enrich it, and then create the experience, whatever it may be, whether it's a web app, virtual reality, augmented reality, metaverse, even AI. And we'll then build the solution for you and deliver it ready to deploy into the real world. So that's our process. We love talking about ideas, and we encourage any brand or agency who wants to do things virtually to get in touch. Thanks for listening.